Good afternoon again, everybody. This is Reading for Charity. I think about that one. I've only said it 17 million times. And today it's going to be the Witcher books, of two I have two in my hands here and a whole bundle more on my Kindle, which is how I chose to read these ones. Couldn't get hold of the books. The books were really hard to get hold of, cheaply. But I found a really good deal on the Humble Bundle, believe it or not, of all the Witcher books. So that worked out very nicely. Right, okay, the Witcher books, written by Andrzej Sapkowski, and I have butchered that, and I apologise to all my Polish friends. These are a weird set of books. If you've ever come across The Witcher from the video games, Geralt in the Witcher books is an utterly different beast. There is far more sex, violence, drugs and rock and roll in the books than there are in the video games, and there's a lot in the video games. He's also a slightly different type of character. In the books, he genuinely reminded me of Drizzt from the Dungeons and Dragons books. He feels just like an albino Drizzt, in terms of the kind of fact he's the neutral good style, greater good. You know, you'll let some people be murdered as long as it's for the benefit of everybody, not just the people being murdered. But sometimes he'll jump in if he really likes the person. It gets very, very silly. The actual books themselves, I actually, and this is going to be possibly sacrilegious and earn me a good slapping from some of my friends, I actually preferred the short stories that Geralt appears in. I really like the kind of monster huntery type stuff that he does, where he only, he comes across monsters, but he knows they're not bad, so he befriends them, but he'll kill the bad monsters, and it's all very interesting. I really liked the short stories. I thought the short stories were really, really good, and they whetted my appetite. The actual kind of saga itself didn't come together with me quite so much, and there's a few reasons for that. So the kind of power levels of the book, so looking at it with my GM's hat on, the power level of the books is all over the shop. The ability of people to fight each other, fight monsters, use magic, use various powers, really serves the plot rather than having any value of consistency. So, Yennefer turns up and is immediately, super powerful, super amazing, and then just kind of has her power walked back considerably as the stories go on. Ciri, for example, Ciri is your average day-to-day Mary Sue in that she ends up doing everything and can do everything. I found, out of all the main characters, I think liking Dandelion the most, just because he was the only one that genuinely seemed normal through the whole thing. When Dandelion's getting threatened, his response is to scream, wet himself, and then basically tell the person who's threatening him whatever they want to hear to leave him alone. It's the right response to do. It's what you would do if you were that person in that situation. He is the best written character in the book, in the series, in my opinion. The story with Ciri, which is really so the Witcher novels aren't about Geralt. They're really, really not. It's Ciri's story, and Geralt's a bit part character in reality. Ciri's story is just, it starts off fairly normal. It starts off, it's the orphan with the I can't remember the name of the tradition that Geralt invokes to get hold of her in the first place. It's the kind of, you give me the firstborn child thing. I can't remember the name of it. And then her castle's attacked, and she's the last one left, and she just turns out to be the most amazing thing in the world and is important to yada yada yada. And the Niflheims want her, and Geralt needs her, and he teaches her to become a Witcher and does this and does the other thing. It boils down to June. And Ciri is essentially Paul Atreides in this. For the first few novels, that's essentially what it is. It's the child who's desperately important, has the older person teaching them the ways, protecting them, vigorously sacrificing themselves in different ways for the needs of the child, and the child grows up to be amazing. it's essentially a similar idea to Dune and Paul Atreides. Okay, and then it gets even sillier. The last book, The Lady of the Lake, is the bit where I was scratching my head and throwing my hands up and going, really, we're doing this. Sir Galahad, Sir Galahad of Arthurian legend turns up in the last book, and Ciri basically finishes the story. This finishes the entire saga by just riding off into the sunset with Sir Galahad. It's like, really? That's how we're finishing this? Okay. I mean, I understand that he's taken fairy tales and legends and mythology and woven it all the way through the saga, but that ending, I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, fine, and that's ignoring. So, my biggest problems in this book are probably with Lady of the Lake. It has to be said. I think it finished on a bad note. The whole nonsense about Ciri having to sire a child with the King of the Elves, and the King of the Elves being unable to get it up for Ciri, the whole thing is just it felt a little bit silly to me. I felt the longer the saga went on, the sillier it got, which is I think why I like the short stories so much. The short stories are to the point. They show off Geralt. They show off the kind of weaving together of the fantasy world and the mythology and the fairy tales from our world better than I think the actual saga did. And I know that's possibly sacrilegious, but that's my opinion. Neil, you can come and beat me up now. So, should you read these books? Yes, you definitely should. I think they're good. They're good fantasy novels. I think the short stories, the books of the short stories, are better than the actual saga, and I think you should definitely read those before you kick off with Blood of Elves and the actual saga itself. If you're coming to the books because you really like the Witcher video games, you might be in for a shock. You might be in for a surprise, because this is not the Geralt you know. And maybe you shouldn't read those books in that case. If you're expecting more of the video games, nah, don't read these books. You're going to get frustrated with them because you have an idea of Geralt in your head that these books aren't. If you're not a fan of the Witcher video games, yes, definitely read the books. They're good fantasy. They are very, very heavy on the raunchy side of things. And if that doesn't float your boat, then stay away from them. If you're totally fine with sex and books, absolutely go for them. They are excellent. So read them. They're good. They are very, very good. And now I have to go into hiding because my Polish friends will murder me now. So, next up, what are we going to do next up? I have my list of the books I'm going to review. Next up is going to be The Talisman. That's the next one we're going to read. Until then, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening, and good afternoon.